Welcome to the DNX podcast, the #1 resource for entrepreneurs, nomads, and impact-driven souls. And I am your coach, SILVIA Christman. Hello and welcome back. I'm here today with my friend Edan Harari, who has a business called the Kinetic Body Therapy. And in my opinion, he is kind of this very special healing ninja. We met a few months ago, it may have been longer than that now, and I happened to have so much pain in my shoulder, and he walked by and he just very miraculously touched my shoulder, and I was instantaneously pain-free. So I'm very, very grateful that you actually made the time to be here today on this podcast. So hi, welcome.
Hi there. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so that's what happened, right? That's how we met. You were standing in a crowd of people, friends of mine and ours, here at the assemblage, which is also a very beautiful place. And I, as usual, had this pain in my shoulder that can be really overwhelming. And I don't really recall what you did. You just moved it. And poof, it went away. I instantaneously had so much movement in my shoulder. It was crazy. Because usually I have a frozen shoulder and it doesn't quite, cooperate. And I have to do a lot of things every day to make sure there's movement, and you just kind of made it go away.
Yeah, and I actually have that as one of my testimonials as a video.
Oh, me being all excited about this?
Yeah, because your reaction was priceless. It was so great. You're like, wow, it's better,
Well, when you live with chronic pain, that's the thing.
Yeah, and that's the thing here too, is that I'm really happy to be here because I want to share the possibilities of healing with the world, because people who are suffering from chronic pain really do think that they can't heal, and I believe that they can with using the right modalities.
Totally.
So we met, and it was like, you had some contraction in your shoulders, and I was like, oh, I know what this is. I see this all the time.
What is it?
It was just contractions in your anterior chest and in the pecs, the muscles, as well as the fascia, the connective tissues. And what I did was just put your body into these positions of ease and comfort, which is exaggerating the pattern of the dysfunction.
Right.
And then your body just self-corrects. So essentially your body healed itself, and that's what's happening with all of my clients and friends and people who I work with with this modality. Really, it's just all about getting the body to self-correct. And so if our body is in a state of dysfunction or dis-ease, where it's, in a kind of imbalance, if you will, it's going to go back in balance and harmony if we exaggerate the pattern. And that's essentially what homeopathy does when you take a remedy. It exaggerates the pattern, so the body's like, oh, I need to heal myself. And then it just heals. Because the body has the capacity to heal itself. It's extremely intelligent, much more intelligent than we think. And so our body, or I like to call it body-mind, and lately it's not even body-mind, it's body-mind-spirit, it's this whole being of us, is basically a self-corrective mechanism. There's self-corrective mechanisms, and we are this organism that heals itself. And so what I do is, with that understanding, I place my hands onto people's bodies, and very, very gently and safely. I work with kids as well, so it's very gentle and safe. I put bones into positions that then stimulate the nervous system to self-correct. So your brain is like, oh, I can let go now. And I work with the proprioceptive reflexes, which are the sensors of the nervous system. And that's just one of the many modalities that I use in my system, which I call kinetic release therapy. Yeah. And now what I'm doing is, after years of working with, over a decade of working with people's bodies for pain and alignment and performance, what I do is now I'm trying to bring kinetic release therapy to the masses as a philosophy and understanding of healing, and how sharing through these words right now, we can actually get people to heal from their pain if they understand the principles of healing, which are in this method of kinetic release therapy. So I actually work with people on Skype around the world, and I actually support their healing process without even touching them. And so it's, yes, I can do some energetic work at a distance like Reiki, but this is not what I do. I actually do this with energetic transmission, with with discussion, with words, and using words as codes to have them shift into a state of harmony and balance and ease.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what I experienced when I was there with you. I think for someone like me, and I'm sure anybody listening that has ever had chronic pain, it's quite frustrating because there's always an underlining amount of pain that you're dealing with. And, you know, it can get thrown off balance. And there's quite a bit of work you do almost every day to make sure you keep it in check and move. And, you know, I practice a lot. A big reason why I practice yoga every day is that I need to get that frozen shoulder in motion. Because if I don't have it in motion for an extended period of time, it ends up being really stiff and painful. Yeah.
So movement is key, and that's part of my practice, and that's why it's called kinetic. Kinetic is of or relating to movement, and movement. I'm a movement artist. I'm a dancer, house dancer, and movement artist. The reason why I say movement artist because I use movement as an art form, and I'm a generalist. I don't work with one particular movement style. Like yoga is one movement practice, right? Qigong is another movement practice. Totally. Dancing is a movement, practice and art form. And so what I do is kind of use movement as medicine. So not just touch and also words or philosophy or codes, but also movement. And movement is a big part of my life because when I move my body in these very precise ways, it actually gets my body to be at an optimum state of being and just thriving, right? And so movement is there for us as a tool. I've personally used movement, to heal myself from a lot of different things, especially from like emotional suppression and just emotional energy that's stored in our body that is making us feel stuck in that pattern of dysfunction. I used movement as just dancing all night at parties and events, and that was a way for me to escape. And instead of taking drugs and alcohol, I used to do a lot of that in the past too, but I kind of realized that quickly that wasn't sustainable. And I was like, wait, what if I just use movement? Right. What if I just dance, you know? And, that really was a tremendous part of my healing journey, escaping to the nightclubs in New York City. And now it's just like, going out and just, I could still go out to the parties, but not have to take any substances. And so I'm all about supporting a substance-free living, even though I think that some substances are there as medicine. But I think very often people are overusing them and they're using them to escape. And so I think that it's about stepping into what you're feeling. And that's when you're going to really heal, not just using a substance to temporarily make you feel better.
100%. Yeah. That's right. When was it? Last week, the week before, we were on the dance floor together.
Yeah, that was great. That was such a good party.
I know. Yeah. So, and exactly, I'm a substance-free dancer myself, so I enjoy it. I enjoy movement, and there's things like 5 rhythms, like full body expression through the art of movement and music.
Yeah, there's lots of different practices like that. I think there's journey dance, there's 5 rhythms, there's a bunch of different types of practices that are starting up right now, and I think that's the future of kind of holistic healing, in that we're using more movement. So it's not just yoga, because yoga is one movement practice once again, but I think that we can use dance and dance therapeutics. And that's what I do in my movement method, which I call kinetic flow. Right. So I have my own movement method, which I'm developing, which hopefully will get as famous as 5 rhythms one day. Yeah. And so the idea behind my journey of movement is that I actually am there to I'm providing a healing experience to everyone in the group through movement. So instead of working one-on-one with my clients, which is what I've been doing for years with the manual therapy and touch therapies, I'm actually doing that with the group of people now. So I'm putting together workshops where people get together, and I go off what I'm feeling in the room and where people are holding on to tension, what types of emotions I'm feeling in the room, and we work through that with movement as a form of medicine to release all of these restrictions, contractions, and emotional blockage,
Wow. Yeah. I love that. So I was gifted a massage like last week, and it was probably one of the most painful things I've ever experienced. The gentleman found very quickly that there was a lot of tension and things in my left shoulder, and literally ended up sitting on top of me and just like digging in and releasing things so forcefully that at some point I had to admit I had reached my pain threshold of withholding. Like going through that, it was not relaxing, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't see how that could be relaxing. Yeah.
It was not relaxing.
Yeah. And some people find it relaxing. So,
Really?
Yeah, that's the thing, is some people do. And so I think, it's not, to be honest, it's not necessarily pain. It's more kind of sensation, and it's intense sensation. But to you, it became pain, right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, wait a minute. So normally when somebody's digging in and they're working with our bodies, and it can be this really intense sensation that Tom Myers talks about this from anatomy trainings. He says, it's not pain, because pain is like a negative thing. This is a therapeutic thing. But for you, that wasn't therapeutic. Do you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like that was uncomfortable. And so that's going to cause you more contraction in your body, right? So if that's going to cause you more contraction, how are you healing exactly?
Traumatized.
Trust me, I've been there. I've been there. If you go to the Asian places here in New York City, and once in a while you'll get like
once in a while. I have one around the corner from my apartment that's pretty great.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like, so this is the thing. When we listen to the body, that's when it heals. And so this person was obviously not listening to what your body needed. He had an agenda. So the first thing that I
think he wanted to break through the pain.
Perhaps.
Maybe.
But I don't know. Did it work?
No.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So what's possible if instead of breaking through our pain, we actually just exaggerate the pain pattern and let the body then heal itself? Right? What's possible if instead of trying to force our healing upon ourselves and others, that we slow down and pause and tune in and listen and feel what we have to feel in order for us to heal? What if we just, let go of the need to heal? Because a lot of times the need to heal is causing us lack of healing. It's preventing us from healing, right? So I just wrote a post about this on my social media today. It's like, the pursuit of healing is actually oftentimes preventing us from healing, right? Sort of like the pursuit of happiness, right? The same idea. And so these are the principles that I'm here to share with the world, but I want to share with the world because sometimes somebody can listen to a podcast like this and start to shift into a healing state because this whole time they've been stuck in that pain pattern and that vortex of pain where they're just suffering and they're like, I need to get better. I want to get better so bad. But they're wanting to get better so bad that they're actually causing themselves more contraction, more inner conflict and resistance. They're not letting go and surrendering to what is. They're not learning from the lesson of the pain. Pain is there to teach us a lesson. And every time that I've been through pain, whether it was my cluster headaches, which were some of the worst pain that a human can, which was some of the worst pain.
What's a cluster headache?
Okay,
headache?
So cluster headaches are the most painful.
Headache.
They're the most painful condition known to man.
Okay,
so.
Is it a migraine?
It's 10 times worse than any migraine.
Ooh.
It's emergency room pain where you check yourself into an emergency room and oxygen is not even enough. And neither is morphine. Okay. That's how intense the pain was, at least for me. So they call them suicide headaches. People have literally committed suicide from these headaches. I wouldn't even classify it as a headache. Wow. It's literally like a neurological disorder or something. And so I've been through that several times in my life. It comes once every 2 to 5 years for me.
Yeah.
And so every time that I've suffered like that, when people tell me that they're in pain, whether it's, their back pain or whether it's, migraines or any other chronic pain, fibromyalgia, I work with people with fibromyalgia, I always, remind them that, I really do know what it's like to be in pain. Like I have been there. And so I will say that while I'm suffering from the pain, it's never like, oh, what's the lesson here? What's the blessing? It's usually like, this sucks. How can I get this to end?
Totally.
But afterwards, there's always a lesson. There's always a blessing within it. So I say to people who are suffering from pain or mental illness or addiction to ask themselves right now, what is the blessing? What am I learning from this? What can I learn from this? What is my body teaching me? What is my body telling me? Because the body's yelling. And also, what can I do in my life right now to shift this, right? And what if I need to learn something first before I heal from that pain? Mm-hmm. How is this pain serving me? These are the questions that I go through with my clients. And I think that just sharing these questions with the world on a podcast like this can actually shift people into healing. And that's what I'm here for. That's what I want to do. This is my mission. One of my missions in this world is to help people heal from the unnecessary suffering and pain that they're going through. And I think that at one point we get to a point with chronic pain where we've suffered enough and it's time to heal. Mm. But as soon as we've actually suffered enough, we've learned enough from that experience, and we'd like to move on, I'm here to help people get unstuck, right? And to kind of shift into a new perspective, a new way of being in their body, mind, spirit, in their being, right? A new way of being.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, even I'm just thinking like, why am I still in pain?
Yeah.
What am I holding on to?
Yeah. So I always go into so let's just go through here right now. So, okay, so your left side, right? Left shoulder.
Yeah.
Relationship to the feminine.
Oh.
So where in your life, so this may or may not be the case, where in your life are you having some sort of resistance to the feminine, whether it's yourself, your mother, your sister, if you have a daughter, whatever, right? Like, we kind of want to look through that possibility. It's just a possibility, right?
How do you define then the masculine and the feminine?
So the feminine for you would be like your heart, like your heart connection, like love, like your, your feminine side. So your masculine side is like the business, the power, like the
I got that one under control.
Exactly. That's why your right side is
My
good.
Right side's fine.
Your right side's fine. So where in your life do you think that you're lacking some sort of a connection to your feminine side, or where do you feel?
Did you hear Did you just hear that pop?
Yeah.
Ooh, weird. It was like instantly. It sunk into my heart and went tuck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because the microphone is right next to it, it's probably audible.
I wonder if it was audible.
Yeah,
oh my
great.
God, that's so funny.
Yeah, you can hear it, I'm sure. And let's see, what area of my life?
Is your feminine side being nourished right now?
Probably not, because I'm focused on work all the time.
Yeah. So you're way too right.
Yes.
Right.
So when I get into work
like,
mode and I'm like really fully and I'm totally switched on my everything I'm doing right now. But this is precisely why about 3-4 weeks ago, and the pain is not constant. It comes in waves. And I was at my acupuncturist, and she's been working with me for many, many years. And she said, well, maybe next time you come to me before your fingers go numb. And I'm like, right. I'll remember that. Yeah. When you're just like, I got like numbness in my fingers. I wonder what's happening. But it's almost like my ambition and being so excited about things that I'm developing and creating and putting out into this world can easily override my nurturing side and my need for self-love and community and, intimacy and, being around people because, and that's always been a pattern. And there's nothing wrong with being excited about the things you create, but there is a point beyond which it throws you off balance.
Yeah, that's the yin and yang in Chinese medicine that they always talk about, right? Yeah. So for you, it seems like you got a lot of yang and not enough yin. You got a lot of the masculine energy of like being driven and ambitious and, like growing your business and being successful and it's great and that's all beautiful.
Like I love it.
But
like I jump out of bed in the morning and I'm like, woohoo, let's go.
Yeah, but then, so like what's possible?
Yeah.
If you jumped out of bed in the morning and nourished your feminine side in the morning before you do all that other stuff?
Fair. Okay, here's a question. I feel like I do that. Because that's why I have in the morning, I have my no-call times. I have my check-in with myself time. That's why I have my yoga and meditation. Not that.
Maybe it's not that.
But, you know, it's like yesterday was Self-Care Sunday. So
for me too. I went to the bathhouse yesterday.
Yeah. And, you know, it's like I went to steam, I got a mani-pedi, got a little like shoulder rub, got a facial. Like I just celebrate. I have my self-care Sundays.
Great.
You know, I have my digital detox Saturdays, you know, but you know what's missing is, and I feel like I do that because I just don't try to interrupt my self-care Sundays or my digital detox Saturday. Like on Saturday, I went out into the woods. I was upstate and went for a God walk and like just explored nature and tapped into all of that, you know, just to be like in awe with what is. I totally ventured off the beaten path and landed in the middle of nowhere in the woods. And yet I have shoulder pain in my shoulder, right? And I think what's missing there, if I have to be really, really honest, is the degree of personal touch in my life.
Companionship.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it's like, I think in phases where I don't have an intimate relationship or, let's say, not a regular occurrence of intimate relations with the opposite sex, you know, you contract. I contract.
Yeah.
And I find, you know, and I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Like, I don't need to be deeply in love with you. I think there's a wonderful opportunity to have loving relations and a exchange between humans that I personally always experience as something that really opens up my body. And like when I go practice after that and can be a total stranger, you know, not like an unloving encounter. I'm not trying to put that out in the world. Like everybody like, go have meaningless relations. I'm like having a meaningful encounter with 100%. Somebody I may not even know.
Yeah.
If I get up in the morning and practice yoga, the way like my body is open and like there's no pain literally in that.
Yeah.
So maybe I just need to have more sex, I guess.
It could be. Well, what if I told you? What if I told you? First off, you don't need it. Okay? Because needing is more of that contraction.
Yeah.
But what if I told you that sometimes I will recommend some clients of mine get an orgasmic release. In other words, like we have energetic blockages in our body. If we're not getting enough of that orgasmic release, then it's just like we're not coughing, sneezing, yelling, crying. All those are different releases that our body must go through in order to balance the energy.
Yeah.
So sometimes we do need an orgasmic release. Other times, like we don't, because if we do that, it's actually going to throw us out of balance because we've been doing it too much, let's say, right? Yeah. So it's really important that we realize that there's an energetic balance, and this is what Wilhelm Reich talks about in his work, and he was German, right? Like
right. You. Yeah.
And so he talked,
Reich,
you know,
for all the Germans out there.
And you know, so and with him, it's all about like that muscular armoring in our body, which is the contractions that we have, and that a lot of that is like we work with different energetic, you know, blockages in the body, and that's one of the systems that I use of healing that I use in kinetic release therapy as well. Yeah. I've been practicing with an orgonomist and actually learning how to unblock these energies, and so there's ways to do that. And so sometimes orgasm is actually something that I would recommend my clients receive or give to themselves in order to work with the energy in that way if they're energetically blocked or if there's way too much energy contained in their system. Does that make sense?
100%. Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
I think
now you're just reminding me. I mean, my self-care Sundays used to have like a complete yoni egg session of self-care and, you know, orgasmic bliss in there. Like, when did I take that off the schedule? I don't, you know, it happens so automatically sometimes. You know, I was going to schedule like an oming session or a yoni massage. I should do that. Because here's the thing, like, it's not that like my self-care Sunday session yesterday didn't it does still include masturbatory release in that sense, but, honestly, I think right now I'm just a little rushed about everything. So, and that sort of outward going orgasmic release that's more of a quick fix isn't quite the same as like a, full yoni egg practice or like yoni massage or, a encounter with another person. There's something about doing it with another person that adds another layer.
It does.
Of orgasmic release that is a full body experience.
And also the oxytocin, right? When you're the touch, right?
Yeah,
the touch hormone, that doesn't come into play. And I think that when we do masturbate, I think it's important that we actually put some coconut oil on our body and massage ourselves and do some breath work and get involved rather than it being this thing to just quickly like release the tension, which I used to do to fall asleep at night. It's let's just do this and just go to sleep, right? It's like, no, that's not the way to be.
Yeah, it's
that's
like,
actually
go to the steam room, lather yourself in coconut oil, just like lie on the bed.
Yeah, really make it an experience where you're nourishing yourself and where it's special. And so it's not just this thing to release the pressure, because that can be toxic. So for me, that was actually something that became toxic in terms of like the energy was way too much up in my head. In the ocular segment is what Reich calls it. So it's like around the eyes and so in the head. And that might be the reason why I've gotten my cluster headaches, right?
Yeah.
So for me, the sexual experience was something that, we're now going into a whole nother topic. But this was, this is a whole nother podcast episode. Like we can unpack this for days. But, for me, it was always like, visual, like watching porn, right? Yeah. And that's for a lot of men, is watching the porn and making it a visual experience where you're actually making the sexual experience in your body as like this, it's imagination. And sex and imagination don't go together.
No.
It should be sensation, touch, breath, taste, feeling, like all that together. That's what's going to get you sexual arousal. If you're getting sexually aroused because of a visual kind of imagination kind of world, which doesn't exist, like the porn world doesn't exist, it's not real, right? So if you do that, then what's going to happen is you're going to throw yourself out of balance energetically.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened to me. And I feel like that happens to a lot of men, and that also affects their relationships.
Yeah.
It affects their marriages. And so this is a big topic to discuss too. And I think that there's a lot of people who are doing great work around that. And it's great that people are getting into Tantra now lately a lot more.
It's so beautiful to watch, because like Tantra in essence is the art of attention,
Yeah.
Like, and to really practice, consent on a new level at a moment-to-moment basis to explore another human being. And it doesn't have to be about, we're going to get married and be happily ever after. It's just like, can we just right here, right now, explore each other on a moment-to-moment basis to whichever degree we feel comfortable right now.
And it's mindfulness. And mindfulness is knowing that right now is the only moment that exists. Yesterday was yesterday's now. Tomorrow is tomorrow's now. Right now is right now. And so I really think that it's a beautiful thing for us to be giving to ourselves these gifts, these experiences of momentary bliss, because it's something that we deserve as humans, as long as we do it safely with consent, right? We do it with, we do it with someone who, who's also on that vibe, right? Where it's not
who's
about
actually like down for the experience. Yeah. Like we're just here to go on a journey.
Totally.
Right? Totally. Like this is just a moment-to-moment journey, and we're just going to explore it to whichever degree we feel into it today. Yeah. And like whatever felt great to me today may not feel great to me tomorrow, because especially for women, our hormonal levels dramatically change like the way we like to be touched. True. Like when I'm right before my period, the last 3 days before that, like do not even think about touching my nipples. That would make me angry. Yeah. I get that. During a different time of my cycle, that is the most pleasurable thing I can imagine.
Yeah. But isn't that beautiful that like, we always, show up differently in our bodies? And so another thing is like, I just, I used to have a teacher who was like, when somebody comes in for a session, you can either have a protocol or you can have like a plan, or you can just go into the session and be mindful with what they need on that day. And that's kind of what I do. It's just like, this is what I teach as well. It's like, what about how this person's showing up in their body that day? So I can have a plan, an agenda of like what I want to work with. I want to work with their shoulder today and do this and that technique. But honestly, the best way that I actually support my clients is when I'm totally tuning into what they need on that particular day, because every day we are different than the next day.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. Wow, this was amazing. Thank you so much for making the time. For everyone listening, we're going to put all the important links, obviously, below this podcast so you can find Edan. And again, thank you so much for being here.
Sure, thank you for having me.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for your ongoing support. Before I leave you, I want to invite you into my world. Please go check out dnxcommunity.com. This is where you'll find the other nomads and evaders of convention. We'll see you there. And if you're interested in our English-speaking events, go and check out dnxglobal.com. You'll find the link below this podcast as well. And if you have time, one last favor, please go to iTunes, look for SILVIA Chrisman or look for the DNX podcast and leave a review. Thank you so much, lovely people, and I'll talk to you next time.